Okay, welcome to my review of the final and the last and the no more after this and the finishing touches, the cherry on the cake, the top of the top, the I don't even know where to go with this literally. So after how long has it been? 6 years. 6 years of Gwent. We finally see the. This is like Avengers Endgame. This is like the capstone, the final piece, the missing jigsaw, as you were. The what's the word? The Rosetta Stone of the vision of the Gwent dev team for how they see the archetype fitting together. And finally we can stop saying, hey, we gotta, maybe there's more stuff coming that will make this make sense. Now we don't have that excuse. It should make sense by now, right? So first off, Varina sounds cool. She looks like she could be a vampire. You know who she reminds me of? She reminds me of the drug farmer lady in the Ozarks. You know what I'm talking about? The badass older lady, the crazy one. No, I was gonna say your mom, Akama, but this is gonna go on YouTube, and I thought maybe we should try and be wholesome. But Darlene, yes, she reminds me of Darlene. But I said it? No, I responded. You were the one who made me say it. So maybe chat can be here for this. So when you think of her as Darlene, she looks scary as fuck, right? You're just like, I don't want to mess with this vampire. She's gonna kill me. So it's a 10 provision unit that will play for 10, right? Because it's 6 power and 4 bleed on deploy. Don't say, oh, but it will play for 14 if you have a flutter. No, that's the flutter playing for whatever many points the flutter is playing for. You can't double count stuff. And so same thing with Garcane, same thing with Oriana. This is a 10 for 10 with a passive. So I could play Igni or Geralt of Rivia and kill a thing. Or I could play Heatwave if I'm allowed to play special, because I'm not like, forced to play Renfrey to make this archetype work. So, or it competes with like Detlaf, which is a 6 body and applies up to 8 points of bleed, right? So that's the competition. Or Crimson Curse, which is a 6 body and up to 10 points of bleed or damage. Obviously, Weather is more conditional than this, right? Weather is harder to control. So it's not a bad card. Like, I can see playing this instead of Cave Troll in a Vampires list. Or like, it's better than Proto Flutter. I don't think it's better than Catacan. Because like, Catacan is 5 power. If it's not removed, Catacan will play for, 16, 20 points. And if it is removed, then it's still played for 8. This, if it's removed, plays for 10. And if it's not removed, how much does that play for, really? Like, what is the value of an enemy card not boosting? If you're applying it to, like, a passively boosting engine, like, say, a Nilfgaard Marine, sure, there's value in it. But this is never going to be good into, like, Imperial Formation, because Imperial Formation will just lock it. or kill it using one of their 3 tall punishes. And don't say, oh, it uses a lock. They have 6 locks. They have 8 answers total. It's a counter to Yaga boosting pirates. Oh, Yago. Oh, yes. Ooh, slow 10 for 10. Yeah. At 9 provisions, I would play this. Because like Protoflutter is what is it? A 4 plus 3 bleed plus 3 boost, so it's a 10 for 9. I'd play this as a 10 for 9. Like a tech. I'd play it in a Golden Necker deck. I'd play it the way that I'd play Dire Bear, you know? In that I wouldn't. But Skellige has better cards. So in Vampires, this would see play at 9p. Okay, let's go through the different matchups where this passive might be useful, right? So we talked about, like, the issue is, like, if this on deploy gave all bleeding enemies an infusion that prevented them from being boosted, oh yeah, beautiful, right? Make it 10p and I'd play it and it would be cool, because like opponent would be forced to account for it. They would be forced to play around it. They would have to fear it, right? Like there are cards that you fear, right? Like for example, you fear Stefan. When you're playing your cards all game against the Slave 6, you're like, when is he going to play the Stefan? I need to make sure my units, if I don't want something to be removed, it needs to be 9 power or taller. I need to remove his assimilate engines because he might play Stefan and get a ton of value. That's a card that you fear, right? That's a card you play around. Igni is a card you fear and you play around, right? Rompali, like, or Vincent, or like Leo, or Vilgefortz, or Yenvo, or I mean, there's just a lot of cards that you play around before they're played on the board. Like, what if my opponent plays Bjorn next turn, right? What if he Morkvarks? Like, you think about those cards and you play around them. But you're never going to be afraid of this because you'll be like, whatever. If he does end up playing it, I'll just remove it. And then it's like he didn't play it. Like, it's negated, right? I'm scared of Roche. I'm scared of Vernon Roche getting played on the board. Because if he's played, he'll do a bunch of stuff. I'm scared of Unicorns getting played. I'm never going to be scared of this card. If instead it was on deploy, infuse all bleeding enemies with cannot be boosted, then imagine you're playing against cultists, right? Like, cultists would have to think about this card and bleed it out of you before going along round 3. Because in theory, you could just make sure none of their stupid ass engines would exponentially boost. Think of how much value this would get against knights, right? If it did that. But instead, you play it, they'll Erendite it, Heatwave it, lock it, end of story. Like, yes, it's another card they have to answer, but it's taking the place of a card they would have had to answer anyway. Wouldn't you rather play Unseen Elder than this? Unseen Elder, on the turn that it comes down, plays for 14 points. Plays for 12 points, right? 6 plus 4 plus 2. And if your Devotion, plays for a lot more on the turn that it's played. And then it will passively play for 2 points minimum. More with synergies. This doesn't play for 2 points passive. It just doesn't. Like, the only time I see this working is if somehow you manage to apply a bleed to Erland. So you're against an Erland deck, and the turn before last they play it. And you somehow manage to apply a bleed to Erland, even though he's immune. So like you had Weather there, or you had an Unseen Elder that you could guarantee would hit right? Like, because you can put bleeds on every other unit but Erland, and then Unseen Elder will apply bleeding to Erland. But if you've got an Unseen Elder living on the board against an R, you probably already won. Just saying. But anyway, you could play this, and it will prevent that from happening. Or even if this was like work like the way the Prophet does, give the next unit the enemy plays will receive bleeding 4. Like, even that would be more interesting than deploy give an enemy unit bleeding 4. It's just mirror tech. Vampires don't need mirror tech. Yeah, it also includes friendly units. So if the opponent bleeds you, which Nilfgaard, with their beautiful, wonderful 5 provision pikemen that boost their 5 provision dames by many points a turn, they would also make it so your units don't boost. They won't even have to kill your flutters. They just keep a bleed on them. A Vamp Spirit ain't happened since 29th. No, Vamp Spirits were happening a lot during like Rent-Free Vamps period, right? How is it supposed to bring Vamps back? It's not. Like, this is more likely to be used in, I don't know, any other deck. Like, maybe a Kashi deck, I might play this. Because, like, the other Tall Punish cards don't... No, I wouldn't play this in Kashi either. I don't see where I would play this. Unless it does new cards. What kind of synergy? Give me a new card that would create synergy with this. Unless the new cards say that, like, your units on this row can't be locked. Or there's a new card that says whenever a vampire applies a bleed, boosted by the amount of bleed it applied. Like, none of those things are ever gonna happen. You'd play this card in Snap? Yeah, me too. It would be good in Snap. What, 10.6 energy? Yeah, it'd be pretty good. Plus, it would apply a... Well, bleed wouldn't do a lot in last turn, but... Whenever an enemy kind don't get boosted, destroy self. There. Wait, what? Does needed Veil to be near playable? Yeah, or maybe immunity. If this had immunity, I'd play it. Veil would make it more binary and stupid. And yeah, it would make it stronger. It still wouldn't make it a good card. Can our 4 provision get Veil? That card has order and it's 4 power. They shouldn't have Veil. There's no reason Priestess should have Veil at all whatsoever. And the Redanian, whatever, the guy that boosts by 2, I don't know why that has Veil. If somebody's locking a 4P unit, let them? Like, what? They just got Veil for shits and giggles just to make Unseen Elder even more trash. Like, I don't know why those NR cards got Veil. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. It's like they were faced with the choice of giving them armor or more hit points or Veil. And they were like, well, we already gave armor to Ship Ballista and we gave more hit points to Kara Ballista and... Let's just give this one Veil. They were releasing the patch that introduced Veil? No. Which cards? We're talking about Priestess, and we're talking about the 4P Redanian guy that boosts a card in deck. Those weren't introduced in the Veil patch. The Veil patch was like when V came about, right? It was after Merchants of Ophir when everybody was complaining about Maral being busted and Ball was meta and Yenvo would remove a scenario. This card is pretty busted if it was released 5 years ago. That's basically most of the mods for faction. Like, the rest of Gwent got power creep and monsters were like We're cool, except for Wild Hunt, Ogoroids, and, you know. $4P boosty bald chick thing? 4P boosty bald chick thing. Can somebody tell me what card Morrissey is talking about? Oh, that card. No, that card can have Veil. Because, like, that card is boosting, and it's an engine. And I don't think it's 4P, it's 5P. And it starts at 3 power. Like, for example, if Wild Hunt Hound had Veil, I can sort of see that. First of all, it's a part of the Wild Hunt, so it's kind of like untouchable. It kind of makes sense for it to have Veil. And it's an engine that, like, they could kill if they want to, or they can deny its dominance, right? That's how you stop it. Lock shouldn't be a way you stop it. Or you shouldn't be able to punish it with poison once it gets tall, because, like, you let it get tall. It took 10 turns for it to get, you know, this tall. That's your fault. But discard at 8P, yes. Monsters need some good 8P cards that aren't Toad Prince and Lord Riptide. Or Aguara. You know what I mean? Like, we lost Armored Aracus. That card is literally non-existent after it got reworked. It got reworked into non-existence. It was at least payable before the rework. When was the last time any of you saw Armored Aracus in a game in Pro Rank? Yes, Centrian did point out this blocks Sigvold. But if you think this shit is living against Sigvold, you are out of your mind. Plus, when Sigvold clicks, he removes the bleed from himself, so he still boosts anyway. So the only way this blocks Sigvold is if the Sigvold was already bleeding and they tried to Mardrome it before killing your shit. Wow. Show me a game where a 6-power unit has lived against a self-boon deck that has a Sigvold on the board and a Care Troll in the deck. Show me one game where that has ever happened. Good luck. Gee, if only they had 75,000 ways to kill a 6-power unit in Skellige. My god. Skellige players will, like, sneeze. They'll drop a Bjorn to kill something else and your 6-power unit dies by accident. Like, no. Any unit that has the status of bleeding will not be boosted. As long as Varina is alive. It's not like you play this and now for the rest of the game or for the rest of the round, bleeding units can't be boosted. No. It just means if this guy is... It's like a Dire Bear. It's a 10 provision Dire Bear that takes at least 2 turns before playing for the same amount of points as Dire Bear. And is conditional on the enemy having a bleed. Like, if I have a Dire Bear, you either gotta move it to a different row, or you gotta lock it, or you gotta do 8 damage to it. Those are the ways you get rid of Dire Bear. The ways you get rid of this is purify your own unit, kill this, lock this. Like 6 damage killing is way easier than 8 damage killing. Varina AQ to counter cultists? No, it wouldn't. Because how are you applying the bleed to every single cultist unit? Right, it doesn't solve any of the Vampire Seer's problem. You know what? Let me give you, CDPR, if you're watching this, I will now, out of thin air, give you 3 ideas for a vampire card. You can figure out the provisions and the points later, right? But the effects, what would give vampires more depth and more ability? A card that removes bleeding from an enemy and does damage to it by the amount of bleed removed. A card that removes bleeding from a unit and heals it for the amount of bleeding removed. Like Cauterized Wound, right? Purifies it and heals it for the amount of bleeding removed. Or a card that, like, removes bleeding from an enemy and boosts an ally by the amount of bleeding removed. Just anything that lets me turn bleed into damage or heal or something. Give me a card that, like, heals based on the amount of, like, I don't know, boosts all vampires in a row by the amount of bleeding on the opposite row. Something. Just anything that isn't shitty-ass Gale, which literally plays for an extra 1 or 2 points if the target is bleeding. Like, give me some benefit, some payoff cards. Like, you know how, imagine alumni, the student mages archetype without alumni? That's what vampires is. And so then they've slapped in Regis and they've slapped in, like, unintentionally Morvad. And there's a card called Protofletter that is playable, but like, there isn't. Like, Cultists you infuse, and then when that unit dies, you get copies of it, right? Like, give me something. Something that says, wow, you bled this thing, and then you killed it, and now you get a thing. Like, if I'm gonna go on this whole journey, I expect at least a gift certificate at the end of it. With Perfect Fate and Golden Neck Ramps? Sure. The fact that there aren't a lot of good 9p cards in Monsters might mean that this card would see play at 9p, but that doesn't make it a good card. Like, that doesn't mean it's good design. Like, give me some agency. Let me kill an Istrid. For the love of all that is holy, let me kill a Dana. What? Like, if you play vampires and they play Dana turn 1, what the fuck are you supposed to do? I could play Unseen Elder and then Regis and like a Delaf, and the three of them together can't deal with this Dana that's on the board. And don't say low Riptide, because low Riptide should not be the answer to like whatever. Plus it can be played around trivially. Play Dana, move it once. Wow, it's now 11 power, unkillable. Maybe make flatters like Nausicaa Brigades? Their own Sergeant? I don't like the Sergeant design either. It's like unconditional 10 for 6. Like, what's the point of that? But if it was like, if it was a card that was like, if there's an enemy, bleeding enemy on the opposite row, boost self by 6, okay, that might be decent. Well, these cards are designed by Potats. It takes a Potat to recognize the true genius of these cards. Also, flatters are fine. Like, what's not fine is Blood Moon being a complete like disaster of a clusterfuck if you want to get value from your flatters or your Regis. Like randomly hitting veiled units, randomly hitting units that are already bleeding and therefore doesn't apply a bleed, which is bad for your Garcanes, your Oriana, your flatters, and your Regis. But good for what exactly? Like, the Unseen Elder passive is cool. It makes bleeding tick faster. You can kind of sort of kill stuff slightly faster. But bleeding enemies can't boost was never a problem. When was the last time you were in a Vampires game and you were like, man, you know what would be, I just really wish that I could stop that unit from boosting. I can't possibly remember. I can literally only see this being useful against Knights and against Cultists. And you're going to lose to Cultists anyway if they have half a brain, so it's an irrelevant point. And against Knights, sure. If Knights were meta and Vampires were meta, Knights would then add a lock to their deck and then go about their merry way. Like, that's it. They just need one more answer.
I'm not a judge or jury, but I can tell you
no,
this.
Knights are played in tournaments as a blue
won't
coin deck.
sell anybody out to buy his future. And that, my friends, is called
The more the unit
integrity.
is, the longer it bleed.
Kaneki_Yamori
Right.
sub-hype.
Kaneki, thank you. Or Full House with the gifted sub to Kaneki. Thank you so much, Full House. And thank you for the shellacking you gave me yesterday. I learned a lot from those games. Okay. So, like, imagine if... Like, if this was a Nilfgaard card, here's what it would say. Whenever an enemy unit boosts, give it bleeding by twice the amount boosted. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it would be like if this was a Nilfgaardian card. It would be like, fuck you for doing this. Like, monsters have no FU cards. Or like, when a bleeding enemy unit is boosted, damage it by the amount of like bleeding on it or something. I don't know. Or by twice. Some sort of like, oh, you triggered this thing that is now gonna hurt you because you did it. Some sort of like, I'm gonna do this so that you can't do X. Like, whenever one of your units gains a status, also give it bleeding. I don't know. I'm not saying those are good ideas. Those are what would be if this was an NG card. Monsters have FME cards, yeah. It's like, oh crap, opponent has a unit that's bigger than 10. F me and my Lord Riptide. Negative infusion. That's literally what I said, Valstrias. That's literally what I said. I said if this was an infusion that was on the enemy unit, this would be a good card. I'd play it at 10. Because then, like, it would screw over cultists. Because yes, they could purify the infusion from their own unit, but then they'd lose the infusion, the positive infusion. This would be a wonderful, right? The only thing that's going to happen if you put this in your deck is when you run into assimilate, they're going to Taurus this thing. Like even if you never play it, they're going to Taurus this thing, and they're going to drop it, and they're going to play your Necrorats, and they're going to make you regret ever having played vampires in the first place. That's literally. Like, this is a card that you just put in your deck so Nilfgaard can bend you over and remind you who's boss. I was saying on deploy. Infuse all bleeding enemy units. That with the, you know, dark blood sickness, which says, while bleeding, this unit cannot be boosted. I think that on deploy would be balanced, because then if you bleed something, they'd be like, oh shit, this is bleeding. He could dire bear this thing. Like, right? And then they'd be forced to react to it, and you could keep the card in your hand as like a sword over their head. Like, monsters need to be scary. What monster card are you scared of right now, other than Lord Riptide? Name one scary monster card aside from Lord Riptide. There's King Trump and Lord Riptide, right? Those are cards that you're like, oh shit, he might play it. Infused, everyone seems busted? Yes. But that's what it would take. Either that or you rework like the way, or you add a bunch of like cards that actually convert bleeding into something useful. If you want vampires to be playable, like that's it. Counter 3 is like, oh, I have to save my leader for the turn that I play this. Like, that's what Counter 3 would do. It would make this card only playable with Scent of Blood, and only playable if you have 3 targets and 3 leader charges, and you play it, you bleed 3 things, and it's like another answer or lose card. Hitter, Sabbath, and Dagon? Yeah, but Dagon, you just lock it and then you laugh at it. Or Heatwave it, or whatever. Like, how do you counter Vilgefortz? Or Traherne? Those are cards that scare the shit out of me. Or Stefan. You can't. Like, Stefan you can kind of counter by killing other assimilate engines, which is no easy task. And something you already want to do anyway. So it's not like it somehow changes the matchup. Right? Sabbath is a card that you can play around by putting different things in your graveyard, or not putting things in your graveyard, or not having units, or like bleeding it out, or like like, whereas like, oh shit, he might play Rompali this turn is scary. Like, that's a thing that he can do and I can't do much about, and it's just gonna do a bunch of stuff to me. Like, the other way is too good. I agree. But I'm just saying, like, this idea that, like, deploy given enemy bleeding 4, like, the last thing vampires needed was a card that applies a bleed on deploy. We already have Plumerts, Bruxa, Necrorats, like, Protofletter, leader charges, 4 specials, like Unseen Elder, Oriana. Like, we have enough ways to apply a bleed. Like, I have enough ways to deposit money into this account. I need one way to cash money out of it. This is bleeding is a deposit only account. It's an account you can put money into, but like, you only get $1 back per turn. Right? Bleeding is bad. The same reason that the account Reuben's Treasure is bad. Sure, you can load it with 15 fucking coin, but unless the game goes for 30 rounds, you'll never get those coins back. It's just, and even if you do, it's 1 coin a turn. It's like a trust fund that you've been locked into only getting $20 a week out of. Like, wow, I can buy like a McDonald's meal once a week. Fucking thank you, Grandpa. I love you. You've transformed my life. If I live for 300 years, I might get enough money to do something. Vamps need to run poly, do 3 things at once. Yeah, that's Unseen Elder. Like, if this was 12p and applied, like... Like, had another passive or something? Or, like, had something that, like, damaged an enemy unit? Like, if this was deploy, damage an enemy unit by the amount of bleeding on it? Sure. Yavin that could commit bleeding damage? Yeah. I mean, we have Gale. Just make Gale better. Make, you know, like... Or a card that removes, like... remove bleeding from an enemy unit and damage it by the amount removed. Or remove a status from an allied unit and boost it by the amount of bleeding on the enemy opposite enemy row or something. Or even like a Salamander Lackey. You know how Salamander Lackey removes statuses and gives you coins? Okay, remove statuses from an allied unit and apply bleeding, 2 bleeding to a random unit for every status removed or something. Just something more dynamic, something that is like, I'm interacting with the opponent's unit. This unit's getting value because he locked. Like, oh, you locked me? Now I remove the lock and give you bleed instead. Like, I'm converting a negative to a positive, or I'm converting a positive into a bigger positive. Just let me combo stuff that allow like some skill involved, not just if an enemy unit is bleeding at the end of your turn, boost this unit in your deck by 1. Oh my god, it's a Garcade! It's so fucking boring! Or like, on deploy, apply Blood Moon and pray G to the gods that it will apply bleeding to the right target and not a veiled target, and not a target that's already bleeding, or not a target that has that 1 power. Please, Lord, dear Christ, save me, amen. Yeah, heck, just destroy a bleeding enemy. For fuck's sake. There you go. Remove the bleeding 4 and just say destroy a bleeding enemy. Maybe then Devo Vamps will have like some Pepega chance of viability because Devo Vamps has no tall punish. What am I supposed to do? Drop my Regis and then Imlurus Wrath something, assuming that it's lower than my Regis? Or what? Am I supposed to like apply Frost in my Vampires deck just so I can use a tall punish? Like, it's dumb. Resident, yeah, after we do the card reviews. Alright. I think that's enough commentary on this card. Will I play it? Probably. Will it be in some of my decks? Maybe. Is it a good card? It's not a bad card. In terms of power, I'd give this like 3.5 out of 5 stars. Okay? It's fine. It's playable. It's like a 10 for 10 though. And the reason it's playable is because we lack other good cards. Will I play this in Rent-Free Vamps? No, probably not. There's better cards. Is the art beautiful? Yes, absolutely. The art is fantastic. I'm not surprised. But also, I love the colors, like the fall theme. Does it look like a vampire? Not really, not at first glance. But it's fine. Carol? Yeah, Carol does amazing work. Alright, let's look at the card that Lirio revealed. Lara Doran. Elf, Wild Hunt. Oh my god. Another elf, another Wild Hunt. Color me excited. All right, let's read it. So actually, before I do that, can lore-wise, isn't she like a big deal? Is she like the first elf or something? Isn't she like series like blood ancestor? Can someone fill me in on the lore? Wait, Carol does Magic the Gathering art as well? I didn't know that. She's the matriarch of the Elder Bloodline? Okay, that makes sense. Or progenitor, I see. Okay, this card is Disloyal. Damage self by the total duration of frost on enemy rows. What? Death Wish. Boost all enemy units by 2. When your opponent plays a gold Wild Hunt unit while Lara Doran is in your graveyard, they also replay Lara Doran from your graveyard and give her doomed? Okay, so it's you play it twice. And every time she dies, on the enemy side, she boosts all your units by 2. And on deploy, she kills herself if there's like 3 frosts on that row. So it's a card you... Let's just say you have 3 frosts on the enemy row, okay? Because that's not too hard. That's not a hard thing for a frost deck to accomplish. So you play this, and it's like a... It's like a Yennefer that only affects your units. It's like 2... it's 2 Bone Talismans, right? A Bone Talisman's a 3 provision card. This is a 7. So it costs twice as much as a Bone Talisman, and it does twice as much as a Bone Talisman. Fine. It's more conditional, though. Bone Talisman you can play anytime. This requires you have 3 frosts on the enemy row. Like the whole damage self and the death wish. It's like all of that is a backup plan, right? Because you don't want to put this there and have it be transformed, or have him Taurus this shit and put it back on your side of the board, and the Nilfgaard player has 1,005,000 gajillion units, and they get 10 times the value that you would because you're playing Wild Hunt. Like you don't want to play this. This is just a Bone Talisman that. But it only kills itself on deploy. The second time you have to kill it. And the second time requires you play a gold. And that it not have been removed from the graveyard. Which, admittedly, most decks don't have ways to banish cards from their own graveyard. Unless they have the lemons, in which case they like have to play the lemons on range row, which... I mean, Wild Hunt doesn't care much about graveyard hate. The only thing you care if they remove from your graveyard as Wild Hunt is the Frost Echo card, I guess. Oh, the second time you replay it? Oh, okay. Thanks, Val. So the second time also dies. So this is just like Bone Talisman with a lot of extra steps. Is it not? Hey, raise your hand if you were thinking that what Wild Hunt needs is a way to boost all their cards by 2. There's a buff for for Kareem's Tatterwing Frost deck? Yeah, maybe. provision-wise, like, the problem's not provisions, right? Because, like... But you have to play a gold Wild Hunt... This is... Caranthir's a gold Wild Hunt card. And if you have Kitty on your side of the board that you haven't clicked, when you play this on the enemy side, will it boost your stuff? Lear did the math. We'll take a look. So, okay, so there's different parts of this discussion. First is, who is this character and the art and stuff. The art's alright, I guess. I don't know. I guess maybe if I knew more about Lara Doran, I'd be more hyped. But it's fine. It doesn't look like a monster card. But Wild Hunt has never felt like monsters, so... Honestly, they could have been their own faction, for all I care. You know what I mean? Like, they could have been their own faction. They just didn't have enough time, I think. There's... Yeah, Rush, I know that much, but aside from that, I don't know enough about her. Like, I'm not emotionally... I'm like, oh, this character that, like, did this badass thing that I know about, or this, like, super powerful... creature of the lore. The most important thing about this lady is her blood. Like, what did she do? You know what I mean? This is the kind of stuff like feminists complain about female characters. Oh, she's just very pretty. Like, she just has good blood. She exists for her ancestors, for her children to be good. Like, her purpose is her kids having some special powers. Okay, so in the book, she has good story. Cool. That's what I was asking Chad if anybody knew the story, and all everybody knew was just that she's Ciri's ancestor. He one-shot Geralt Mist brother? What? She was the first elf to split off from the Scoia'tael and marry a human. Okay, that's interesting. This is her husband dying. Aw. He got shot with arrows. I assume that's Scoia'tael, because they're the only ones with arrows. Except for, like, crossbows. She's an ancestor. She was important during her time as well. She's basically fell in love with someone she shouldn't and caused a war. The elves killed him, yeah. You just wanted to add something? Thank you, Van. We value your contributions, Kappa. Okay, so classic, like, Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. But without the suicide. Just different factions, love, etc. Okay. Hence the disloyal. Ah. Yes, if this was a Scoia'tael card, it would make a lot of sense for this to be disloyal. Okay. So that's the first part, is the art and the story and the whatever, right? The second part is, how does this work, the mechanics? And we've talked about that, which is that basically damage self by total duration of frost on enemy heroes, as in you play this, if there's 3 turns of frost, it dies, and boost all your units by 2. And then the next time you play a gold Wild Hunt card, yeah, okay. Then there's a discussion of, is this viable? How many points does it play for? How strong is it? And can I use it in my decks? Will this see play? Blah, 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 blah. Hold off on that discussion first, because I think that is not nearly that is the thing everyone focuses on, and it's fucking not important relative to the design of the card, because the power and the provisions are trivial to change. You can just add points. You can change the numbers later, okay? What's more important when you create a new card, like, it's fine if you don't get the power level right, but it's not fine if you, like, shit the bed when it comes to design. And when I think of new cards, if we're getting, like, 2 new cards, like, these are the last cards we're ever going to get. What I want to see is like things that solve problems or add depth or make the gameplay more interesting for a deck. Right? So let's think about solving a problem. Was there ever a problem in Wild Hunt Frost that said, man, if only I had like a stronger Bone Talisman? Was there ever a situation where you thought, if only I could play a disloyal unit, I mean, maybe against an uninteractive deck, it would be cool to have a card you can play on the opposite side. And then you can kill it with your own Frost because they're not playing units on the other row. Like, they row stack, so you put this on the second row. And then you use your special, applies Frost on every row, and it will eventually die unless they play something there. I think that's a cool... Like, having a unit you can put on the enemy side that will then take Frost damage... That's neat. That requires them playing the game at a fairly high level. No, it doesn't. Okay? Because I could just talk to people. Like, I don't have to be a woman to, like, talk to some women and be like, hey, man, what do you hate about your current tampons? How can we make it better? If I'm a good industrial engineer or material scientist, I don't have to have a vagina to make a good tampon. I'm sorry, okay? You could just talk to people. I could be like, Puzzle, what makes your crotch itch? And then you tell me, and I ask Paya, what makes your crotch itch? And over time, I'd compile all the crotch itching statistics and, you know, do something that would, and then I'd be like, hey, Puzzle, try this. Put this in your sandy vagina. Does it make you feel better? And you'd be like, yes, this ointment is great. And then that's it. Like, it would solve the problem. Yeah, they're not hot on listening. That's the real problem. I mean, he types stuff in a Discord, Flather, like, so does Lionheart. That doesn't mean that they listen. Same with pro players. The analogy is apt. I just have to wonder who thought that we need an 11p disloyal law. Yeah, right, the last time... When was the last time you were in a deck builder? You're like, man, if only there was a better 11p unit for my Wild Hunt deck. Like, you're already provision starved up top. 6p card? Hell yeah. Let's talk. 7p? A good monster 6 or 7p card? Yeah, let's go. You know, Goliath's something. Goliath's good. Ogreoids have good 6ps. Because Troll Porter is an ogre. Yeah. So, that being said, like, if this was an 11p or whatever, and the Deathwish wasn't boost all my units by 2, I think it'd be really cool. Like, for example, Deathwish, if the Deathwish summoned a bronze from your deck to the opposite row, that would be cool. Maybe the tallest bronze, right? You know how the Thrive scenario does that? Like, lets you play the tallest bronze? If this summoned the tallest bronze, so you could, like, if this thing dies, a Fiend pops out, right? Or a Griffin. That would be cool. I just don't think boosting all my units by 2 is an effect that Frost wants. Yeah, Rosh, we talked about Varina right before this, so you can watch the VOD if you want. Vampire support, okay. Like, so there was never a situation. This almost feels like a toaster fridge, right? A toaster fridge is like a toaster that's like it's an example used for like something should not be combined. Like, hey, if instead of 2 appliances, you just had one that did both, and it was a fridge and a toaster. It's like, yeah, but one has a heating element, the other has a heat exchanger, and like the heat exchanger on a fridge doesn't get hot enough to toast, so like, why would you combine the 2? Like, it would just make a shitty fridge and a shitty toaster. And so you still would want a proper fridge and a proper, like, it solves none of the problems. This almost, like, if I were to, like, psychically, you know, tap into the mental energy of the designers, you know, something only Wild Potats can do, I think that they were like, okay, we only get to have 1 card, okay? And we want to give some love to Wild Hunt, and we want to give some love to Thrive. How do we do both of them in the same card? Like, oh, I know, Caranthier. They're always telling us that Caranthier should be a Wild Hunt card, okay? Well, we're not going to do that because that would be like doing what people want. Instead, what if we gave some like synergy between, because you already play Caranthier. Like, isn't that clever how we made a card that's used by insectoids? Yeah, that's like cross archetype synergy. We're so clever. We're so good at this. What if, because that exists, how we made Ice Giants good without actually making them good by just adding in reworking another card to make it work with boost with Ice Giants? What if we do something like that with Wild Hunt? Stick this in there, and then that guy from Reddit can finally make his Wild Hunt Alberon Kashi Kiki Queen deck and have it be good. So what you do is you play the Alberon, and the Alberon plays the Frosty Girl, and then you use One-Eyed Betsy to replay. Oh wait, you can't because it's not bonded. You use One-Eyed Betsy to replay a Wild Hunt Bruiser. No, that's not bonded either. What are the monster bonded cards? Plumard. Okay, forget the One-Eyed Betsy. But keep going. I love your energy. Let's go with this. What if you know how right now, like, if you want to play the Thrive deck, you have to have Kashi in your hand, and you have to have Cat on the board, and you have to have access to Caranthier. Okay, well, what if you have all those things and you wanted to add a fourth piece to the combo? Okay, cool. In round one, you could put Lara Doran in their graveyard and hope that it doesn't get transformed or banished or replayed or whatever. And then in round two, what you do is when you play the Caranthier, the turn that you play the Caranthier, this pops out of the graveyard. You play it on the enemy row. It procs your Thrive a second time. That way, on deploy, you get 4 Kashi procs. There. I'm fucking brilliant. I'm a goddamn genius. I've done it. I have solved all of the problems. What Frost cards give you Swarm? None of them. You need to play Arrakis cards. I can see a Frost Arrakis deck being good. But you would basically not play Tyrnalia, not play Golden Child. You would maybe even cut Aridin and Foglets. Keep the Riptide. Keep the Alberon because it's 2 cards in a turn. Heck, you could keep the Tyrnalia because Tyrnalia lets you replay a card, and that can proc Thrive. Clearly you played Toads with Plague Maiden. Yeah. Rehash of Iris from beta. What did Iris do in beta? Mushy. Oberon gives me Rider into 2 Riders for Lara for 16. Insane. Unbeatable. Honestly, Gavin, that's a cool combo. It's a meme, but it's a cool combo. With Tattering, she's a 1-power unit. You can Lara Doran round 1. One round Glusty other round? Wait, what does Glusty have to do with it? Ahsoka episode 4 is online. Let's see you later. Lara plus Tata plus Glusty is pretty funny. I mean, that's... Beta Iris was a spy that boosts all your other units when it die. Okay. Was it 6 power? I like the design of Sabrina, for example. 1 power. I played Diva Oberon for 21 and Show Round 3 for 9 months already. Okay, and I played Detlaf for 72 points for 6 months also, but that doesn't make it good. Go watch that clip. Yeah, I agree, Puzzle. So, setting aside the design and the inception of this, in that, like, it doesn't solve any problems that I thought Frost would have. Now, can we, as creative deck builders, do something with this? Yes. Unlike the Vampire card, which I think is just shit, playable, but, like, not interesting in any way, right? It doesn't enable new decks or anything. Because it requires the target be bleeding. Like, it has no synergy in any other decks but Blood Scent. And in Blood Scent, it's like, do you play this or Death Laugh? Okay, that's a choice. Fine. But it's like, the other card, like, Varina, the problem with this is that, like, it's going to be good in some matchups and completely useless in others. Like, if you're playing against Pirates, what is the point of this card? It's literally a Plumard with 2 more points. What? A 10p 6 power Plumard? No, thank you. Think about it. When you look at this and realize it's a Plumard, you realize it's not good. You mean ballistic physics? If you're talking about the Chunkin' Pumpkin and the potato gun competitions, those are offensive, cruel, and I don't... Why would you bring that up? You know what happened to my grandpa. Sir Phidias? Be better. Do better. Okay. I was only showing that card. We're not going to go back to shitting on that card. Okay, we've already done that. Watch the beginning of this VOD. You'll see me talk about that card plenty. Lara Doran. We've talked about the story and the art. We've talked about the mechanics of how it works. We've talked about the design. Now let's talk about, can we use this card? I've heard 3 interesting ideas so far. One is, because this comes, you get to replay this, right? You play it. It's not summoned. You replay it when you play a Gold Wild Hunt card. My first thought is Caranthier. Caranthier, Kashi, or Kiki Queen would love to have this in the enemy graveyard. Because, like, fundamentally, any Kashi or Kiki Queen deck revolves around the fact that these are cards that will be answered when you play them. And so you try to get value out of them the turn that you play them. How do you do that? Well, Caranthier spawns a 1-power version, which then is, the Caranthier procs to thrive on the Kashi or Kiki Queen. So you at least get 1 proc off of them regardless. Oftentimes you play them with a Force of Nature leader, so you can use the leader to play another unit the same turn, or you play them with Renfree, so you can do like a play a bronze, and then like play the lowest provision card from your deck, whatever. Like, you just try to play as or you play them with Cat, so you can click the Kitty the same turn. You just try to get as much value out of your Kashi or Kiki Queen on the 1 turn that it's allowed to exist before Vilgefortz says no thank you, or gets locked, or demolished by Bjorn, or whatever, right? Like, it's gonna die, so you want to get value. This card being in the opponent's graveyard makes your Caranthier, like, that's cool. Not cool in a, like, oh man, I love this design for the video game, but like, I love doing that to the opponent. I couldn't care less about the Death Wish. Okay, like, yes, if you have a full board and 3 turns of Frost on the enemy row, this is a powerful combo. But if I have a full board, instead of putting 3 turns of Frost on the enemy board, I'll just play a fucking Bone Talisman, which is an organic card, right? Which synergizes with my leader, procs my Kiki Queen, boosts my whole board by 1. Like, it's 7 provisions. No, there's no contest. I'm never thinking about this card for the Death Wish. The Death Wish is like, okay, great. Like, it's points, but it's not the way. Like, if I'm playing a Swarm deck to boost my shit, Maybe this replaces a Yen a Yen invocation, I think is what it's called. But the Yen Invo is already troll in my opinion, because it's like a win more card. Like if I have a full board of units, I'll just play it, like I said, a Bone Talisman. Or a Clear Skies even. Like, but Clear Skies isn't organic, so it's a trash card. If you're not playing this with death, it's negative points? No, not really. Well, okay. I mean, it is, but like, when you kill it, it rewards you for killing it. Hopefully it gives you, like, the way that I'm thinking of it is carryover. You play it in round 1 from blue coin or something, right? When your opponent's just like, you know, red coin abusing, you just put it on their side and it gives you reach, right? In round 1, you can choose to parasite this and give all your units a boost if the opponent like keeps bleeding you or commits something heavy, or you could just leave it if he's not, if you're ahead by more than 6. No, oh, yeah, Troko makes a good point. See, the language on this says, deploy damage self by total duration of frost on enemy rows. Well, because this is disloyal, you're putting this on the enemy side. Which means for Lara, I'm the enemy. And I don't have any frost on my side of the board. I'm sure that's not what they mean, because that would make this card Giga Omega Alpha trash, right? The deploy proxy for it lands? So what? There's other disloyal cards that are worded this way. Perfect example. Let me show you. Let me show you a card that I wish was a monster card, but isn't. The Kraken. Okay, the deploy doesn't say. What are other disloyal cards? Boost an allied unit. So disloyal cards on deploy, like before they're deployed, they're considered your cards. Play the top non-disloyal unit from your deck. Your deck. Top card from opponents. Yeah, okay. So before the deploy happens, it's considered to be on your side. Like, this is your card before the deploy is resolved. Yeah, from your graveyard. Yeah, so this is consistent. I think that's fine. But I can see how somebody would be confused by it. Well, I was right, but I changed my mind, and now I changed my mind again. It sounds, sure, it sounds a little weird, but I think I wouldn't say they need to change the wording. I'll put it that way. Kraken deploy? No, it doesn't. Oh yeah, it does say enemy units. Yeah, exactly. The point is that before the deploy is resolved, it's considered your unit, so it's fine. It's confusing for sure, but it's consistent. Yeah, that's okay. So let's move on from the wording. Okay. When I say I don't care about the Death Wish, it's not that I'm saying I don't want the Death Wish to proc. I'm saying that the Death Wish isn't what makes this card interesting to me, because if the Death Wish was what was important to me, I just played Bone Talisman, and it's better. Even Yen is better, because Yen doesn't require that there be 3 turns of frost on the enemy board, or that I wait a turn and then have to do 6 damage to an enemy unit. Like, Yen doesn't play for, you know, like, I'm not. So I think that as like a 4th piece to a 3-piece combo is very good, but also, do I really want a 4th piece to my 3-piece combo? Like, really? Yeah, too expensive for that to be the important part. Exactly. But let's say you're playing a Tatterwing deck, because for some reason they think that we want to play Tatterwing decks. They think that Tatterwing decks are fun and not binary and stupid and like Tatterwing decks are like, you either just laugh at the opponent for having played a Tatterwing deck. Oh my god, your deck is so shit. Why are you playing this? Haha, easiest MMR of my life. Or you're like, oh, I'm like the 1 out of 5 decks that he's actually good against. Fuck me. Because he got red coin and he has massive reach with Tatterwing. Wait, what? You need 6 turns of Frost? Holy shit! I thought it was 3! Like, I didn't even read it. I just assumed. I just thought that maybe, fucking maybe, perhaps, there was a possibility that this card would not be utter and complete dog shit. Well, you say 4 and empty. That's assuming they don't have a taller unit already on it on any of their rows. So not only do you either have to have 6 turns of Frost already on the enemy side the turn that you played, which means you needed 8. You needed there to be 8 turns of Frost on their side of the board, and then you deploy this for it to die immediately. Or you need this to be the tallest unit on an enemy row, and there needs to be 4 turns of Frost on the enemy board, including at least 1 turn on the row that you play this at. So you need to have had 1 turn of Frost on a row where this will be the tallest unit. So that means the opponent could not have had an 8 power unit on that row. So you apply 2 turns of Frost to an empty row. Like, do you see how stupid this is? If they play on both of those with Frost, they're trolling? Not necessarily. Some cards have to be like Imperial Formation, once flanking. They have to play on range row. Or 4 turns of Frost plus turn. Okay, Caddy, sure. Yes. If I'm gonna use my Tyrannalia click just to proc the deploy death, no, you're not doing any of that. I'm sorry. Like, that's Tyrannalia click is too. It's like a win con. You're not using a win con to proc a Death Wish on a shitty card. That's not true, Troko. If this procs a Thrive on my Kashi, it's way more than. It's a win lesson, Wild Hunt. Rush, have you not been listening to me? I literally have spent 5 minutes. You've been in chat. I've talked about put this in their graveyard in round 1. And then in round 2 or whatever, when you play Caranthier, it pops out and you play it, which procs Thrive on your unit because you have Kitty on the board. Or if you have Kitty on the board. If the Kashi thing worked, but Troko, a lot of times I'll play Kashi and it will be removed that same turn. If I don't have a way to proc it the turn that I play it, it's just a 4. It's a 4 for 10. It's just useless in Wild Hunt. We have to admit it. No, I don't think it's so like if you have a deck that swarms and applies Frost. All right, let's just do that. Okay, let's just make this deck, okay? Let's see if we can come up with the deck where this is not shit. Okay? I mean, Puzzle is one of my favorite deck builders because he's an optimist. And he believes this card could work. So let's see if we can find a way to make this work. But just before we do that, let me just cap off this review. I give this card... I was going to give it a 4 out of 5 before I found out that it's 1 damage per turn of Frost. Like, why you gotta make a card and then make it require Frost? Frost is the least, like, synergistic thing in monsters when it comes to, like, other archetypes. 24 for 11? I mean... By that logic, Stefan is, you know, 3,900 for 11. Yes, if I have 4 assimilate engines on the board and I play Stefan, he plays for 13 plus 16, which is 29. Right? I promise you, you will see a million times more games where Stefan procs 4 assimilate engines than you will see this boost a full allied row. $50 points in Wild Hunt. Alright, so I'll just say that my first impression of this card is that it's like a 3.5 out of 5. 3 out of 5, maybe. Okay. Hey, if I have any editors in the chat, is Ray Ray around? Tigris, do you still remember how to make highlights? You're still an editor, right? I don't know if you're around, but if one of my editors, Rosh, I don't know if I ever gave you editor. If so, I put markers for beginning and end of this review. If one of you could just make a highlight of my card review, that would be awesome. And we can while we have people here, we can try and make a Frost deck. Thanks, Spira. Alright, let's build a bit differently. Let's build a Wild Hunt deck differently. Let's flip the Potat. Let's go over here. Tiny kitty. Okay. So tell me what to remove. Whenever you play Wild Hunt, you end up... Yeah! Guys, I'm sorry. You need... If you played Oberon... And Oberon and this Lara is in their graveyard, you will need to have 7 turns of Frost for it to die immediately. Why? Whenever you play a Wild Hunt unit, this thing is a Wild Hunt unit. Why doesn't it do that? It's not random. Spears stops by usually. Okay, deploy procs before the whenever on this. Right, okay, so if you have 6 turns of frost when you play it, fine. But if you don't, like if all you have is 4 turns of frost on the enemy side, and you play the Lara Doran on the empty row, it's not gonna die because it will be 7 power to take 4 from frost and 2, 4 from there being frost on the enemy, and then 2 from the frost actually proccing. Like, it still boosts it. Why doesn't Oberon boost? Okay, if Malaysian confirmed that Oberon doesn't boost it, that means either they've there's a bug with the way Oberon works because monsters don't have disloyal wild hunt cards, or they've changed this, or they've changed it and they need to fix the wording or whatever. Like, they'll just probably say, whenever you play a wild hunt unit on your side, boosted by 1. Does the leader boost it? If Nilfgaard put frost on your side of the battlefield and you play okay, Cowlin, I mean, we all know the frost deck. Puzzle's saying maybe there's but the frost deck wasn't the frost deck until it became the frost deck. Like, Tyralia kind of made things solid, but there was not one frost deck until like 3 months of people playing different iterations, and like Sergo playing a specific type of way that then everybody coalesced around that being the way. Okay, so like, yeah, Yazar, of course you can share. If you're talking about Lyrio's website, I have Lyrio's website. I'm literally on Lyrio's website. I know who Lirio is. Trust me. We're not talking about... Never mind. I'm just going to not finish that sentence. I'm going to go back to what I was talking about with Calvin, which is that this Wild Hunt deck did not become the Wild Hunt deck until sometime later. Like, decks don't exist until people like Puzzle come up with them, try them, iterate, optimize, and then it becomes the meta, and everybody acts like, oh, that's how you play the Wild Hunt deck. But like, this is the moment where we make the decks. So like, stop it with this. No, it's not possible. Like, we don't need more people shutting down creativity and deck building before we've even tried it. Stop. I think it's worth exploring. Okay, if you think it's a complete waste of time, that's your opinion, but I don't care for it. It's crazy how ML cards always proccing the way it annoys the ML player the most. You mean like this badass card with 65 different conditions to give you a lock? Yeah, again, if you want someone to echo your disappointment, literally watch the last hour of this VOD. You will hear me echo that plenty. I have now moved on from appraising the design of the card, and I've now gone into the section where we discuss the viability of it, and how we can use it, and how we can build decks with it. That's where we're at. You literally forgot Slave Trader existed? Yeah. Poor Rosh. Yeah, like Sabbath. Well, Ash, I think Rosh is annoyed because he replied to you and you ignored his reply. Like, you asked the question, you got an answer, then you repeated the question, then you got an answer in a different form, then you repeated the question again. It's not about chill. It's about... It's frustrating to have a conversation with someone when they don't listen to your side of the conversation. They just want to talk out loud. You know, I recommend slam poetry if you just want to express your feelings, but in my chat, when you talk, it should be for the benefit of others. No worries. Yeah, I figured you weren't trolling or anything. I know you. Okay. I'm just trying to, I don't know. It's the thing I do when I see miscommunication, I try to translate. Well, you wouldn't be playing Lara 3 times, but yes, you could get the effect of Lara. Excuse me, the Death Wish of Lara 3 times. Okay, so we cut Eridan. If we're cutting Eridan, we're cutting Caranthir, Golden Child, and Foglets, I think. You probably want to keep Wildhound Riders because they help you swarm, right? A were-rat? Oh, is that where we're going? We're going the were-rat route? Okay. Here you go. And then why don't we also spend another 11 provisions on Tugo? And then this is Lara Doran. So, do we still run Winter Queen? I feel like we should. Golden Child is okay? Without Eridan, really? Naglfar could be a cut. I mean, who needs consistency, right? Naglfar might help you actually get the Laura, though. It's like 15 for 9, for 8. Yeah, true. The part I don't that made me question Golden Child is, well, first we don't have provisions. We need to cut something. I guess we cut Riptide. We don't have good Caranthir targets. Because Laura... I mean, because all this... yeah, I don't know. Not Riptide. You have 2 Lauras or you... No. I'm saying if I'm playing Were-Rat, why not play Tugo? What if I missed the Laura? Fine. I cut the Tugo. We add the Riptide. I just thought we were being clowns. Why don't we play Armored Araucus? You want the Wild Hunt Purifiers to keep replaying her? No. No. We're not trying to make a shit deck, guys. Swahan with Gale probably won't miss. Yeah, okay. So, what do you guys want for the rest of the provisions? Are there other Wild Hunt golds that we need to play? Well, we're not playing this or this. Natural selection. Yeah, and also, I think we need Parasite. Don't we? Phantom. Right. Naglfar. Like, adding, like, we already added Were-Rat in Paris. And, like. You guys want to insta-kill? Okay, so no Parasite. Imagine if Naglfar wasn't a garbage tutor. Yeah, like, just take the... Oh, it's always garbage, actually. I just wanted to be, like... Instead of look at 2 random, look at the golds in your deck, play one, and move the other back on top of it. Kareem is all about the swarm. But like you're playing a 4/4 that if you get to proc the Lara becomes, and none of these die. I mean, this shit dies all the time. Doldalok? I'm not playing Doldalok. Doldalok is so bad. Yeah, you could literally remove the random. Like pick 2 golds from me, and then this would be a good card. Or at least make this like 7p. 1 Conqueror. Wait, I already caught 1 Conqueror. What are you talking about? Boost on turn is irrelevant? Okay. But like, it's a good Oberon target too, isn't it? Just 2 navs. We want to apply Frost. Like, applying Frost is a very important part of this deck. We can just run 2 Foglets. Navigator? Yeah, maybe 1 Navigator is enough. Did we ever play Wild Hunt Warrior? I mean, Conk is just a good card. Any other Swarm? Yeah, sure. I mean, you could play these things. I don't think you play Evolution, do you? Not without a beast to target. I guess Wererat's a beast, but you probably don't want to use this on Wererat. Do you? Any other swarmy cards? I mean, you can play like a Necker, I guess, but I don't know about that.